Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Um, I'll be hosting the entire webinar this morning. Zach is away, so it's just me. And first, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. Today, we've got a couple things planned. And of course, whatever you have in terms of questions, and feel free to interrupt me at any time. And your questions will take precedence, and I'll try to answer those first. I just want to warn everybody, I wasn't able to get my usual VMware machine up, unfortunately, due to the long time the updates were taking with Microsoft's Windows. So I'm actually running this off the base computer. So this is actually a debug version, a development version of BloodHound, so I apologize in advance if we see any funny behavior. It's just simply because this is actually the development machine that I'm using. So anyways, good morning, Randy, and it's nice to see you again, and Hans as well. Thanks for saying hi. I'm just going to take a quick look through the audience here and see what we got in terms of experience level, and I recognize quite a few names there, so that's a good thing, because today we're going to be focusing mostly on advanced stuff. In particular, I want to spend some time looking at the new function nodes that we got on 1.1, and will eventually be fully integrated with the product, and give you an idea of kind of what they do. This is kind of unlike anything that that you may have seen out there in terms of. I'm aware there's a couple other visual programming tools that maybe specific to brokers and that sort of thing, but these function nodes kind of behave not unlike anything I've seen, at least. So we're sort of breaking new ground here, and in some sense it's actually a little bit experimental. So like I said, this is kind of exciting, and we can sort of see what we want to see is what you guys can build with these things. And using this continuous feedback cycle, we'll be able to consistently evolve the tools and evolve the function nodes themselves, and get them to better suit your needs. So good morning, Gary. It's good to see you there as well. I'm just going to run a really quick poll here, and let's just see if we can get an idea of where everybody stands in terms of their level of experience. So you should see a poll sort of pop up there any second here. And just feel free to answer away, and I can sort of tailor the little workshop today. Okay, it sounds like we have the vast majority of you guys are experienced in BloodHound. This is great. Okay, so now we can really sort of focus on the advanced stuff. There is sort of a new, those of you that are new, okay, actually we do have about 30% that are new. Okay, so let me just close that poll real quick. You might be able to see the results. I'm not sure if you can. Oh, here we go. Okay, so about a third of you guys are actually new. So I'm just going to do a real quick kind of rundown, what BloodHound is, and then, the rest of the stuff, when I sort of move into these function nodes, might not make sense to you, but that's perfectly okay, because, I'm just going to be assuming a little bit that just want to cater to the 70% that have been using BloodHound for a little while now, and sort of cover the advanced stuff. So don't feel intimidated at all. It doesn't take long to sort of get the hang of it. But what I do want to bring up here, and if you just allow me to bring over the web page, if you're brand new to BloodHound, we always like to refer people to. We have quite a lot of resources on our website, but it can be a little daunting. Where do you want to get started, and where do you want to? How do you sort of get introduced to the program? So the best place to get started is go to support, click on learn, or don't click on, but just mouse over Learn BloodHound and just go to the Get Started guide. And this here will kind of guide you to which content is most relevant. Oh, sorry, you're seeing the poll still. Let me just back up. Okay, you should see a web page on your screen now. So if you go to our website and just go to our support, Learn BloodHound, and if you just mouse over that and click on Get Started there, you'll see the first thing that confronts you is the quick start video. And this quick start video is designed to sort of cover a lot in very little time. And then afterwards, we have some tutorial videos. So if you go to just below that, go to the video tutorials, you'll see the quick start video again, but you'll also see some other videos on doing, say, simple things like determining trend, using some basic solvers, and then using the logic nodes, which is kind of the fundamentals, I guess, of BloodHound, where most of the power comes from. And then kind of once you get to that point, a lot of this other stuff that we're going to cover today will make a lot more sense. Okay, before I begin, though, there's a question that did come in from Bob this morning about some of the configurations with SI Raven, so I want to cover that first. BloodHound, again, for the new people, is basically a system modeler, a way to create your trade systems interactively. And of course, once you've kind of got that system created interactively in the computer, now you can go in and you can auto trade it, you can back test it, you can do all sorts of fancy stuff. So we do have a tool in there called Raven, which will let you do the auto trading and the back testing. So let me show you how to get to that first, because Bob's question sort of deals with aspects of Raven. So first off, I just want to load up a very simple 1030 cross template here. This is basically just a moving average crossover entry signal, which goes along when the 10 crosses above the 30 and the vice versa. So it looks like this. Most of you should be very familiar with this. I use the example quite a lot, just because it's very simple. But you see, I've got the 10. Let me just minimize this guy because we're not dealing with him right now. But you see, I've got the 10 moving average in the orange and the slower moving average in the kind of turquoise color, or the light blue. And you can see whenever the orange line crosses above, we get this green signal to go long, and this red signal, vice versa, to go short. So to actually put this in practice and to actually trade with it, what we can do is use Raven, and I'm going to speed up the moving averages a little bit. I'm using, this is not live data. I'm just using a simulator just so I can show kind of how this all works. But what I'm going to do is speed up the moving average just a bit so that we get signals a little quicker, because if we were to sit here and wait for that 10 to cross the 30, we might be waiting a little while. In fact, maybe I will speed the chart up too. So let's just do that. So I'm going to switch this over to a range chart. 4 range will do pretty good. I'm on the CL. All right, and we'll let that load. Hopefully I've got the data. Good, okay. Okay, so let's do that, and let's also, just for the sake of visual clarity, I'm going to speed up these SMAs as well and remove BloodHound because Raven's going to include that already. Now, just an important point, the actual stuff you have in your chart, like I've got these 2 SMAs, they don't actually affect BloodHound's calculation in any way. I'm just putting this on here for the purposes of so you can visualize them a little easier. But the BloodHound can just as easily calculate these crossovers and whatever without having any other indicators on your chart. So this is just for visual confirmation, if you will. And let me just make that line. It's really for the benefit of the human, really. The computer, the BloodHound can actually knows exactly what's going on already without those indicators being on there. So let me also make these real time. Like so. Okay. And that's still a little bit too hard to see, so let me just switch that over to white. All right, let's do a linen. Okay, sure. Move. I hope you guys can see that. That maybe, sorry, I don't want to muck around too long with this, but if you can't see it, it's kind of pointless, so let's try that. All right, we'll just stick with that. That's probably worse, but okay. You can see that kind of brownish line crossing now, quite aggressively over the blue line. So what I'm going to do there now is add Raven. Okay, so this is again how you would go about either auto trading or doing analysis, backtesting analysis with your system. So say you've got it all worked up, you've got it saved and everything into the template. Next step is to add Raven, and you may see some additional things here that shouldn't be here because again this is a debug build. But okay, so Bob's question sort of revolves around what's this entry and exit logic and how does it work? What does it do? Okay, so with our very simple system, okay, so we don't have any exit or entry logics. We just have this one solver. That's it. This is the, okay, what do we change that to? I think the 210, if I remember here. I'm a very forgetful person if you haven't noticed. Sorry, the 210. Okay, so this is the 210 cross we're doing. And I'm just going to name this the 2 cross 10. Well, let's be really explicit. Okay. And hit OK. And like I said, we don't have any entry logic. We don't have any logic templates designed yet. But let me show you what that means. So this is that solvers tab. Okay. And we also have this logic tab. Okay. So we only got one little piece to this system right now, and that's the crossover. You know, but let's say we add something else. Maybe, oh, I don't know, the slope of the stochastic or something. Okay, so stochastic. Right, so I'm just going to throw that in there real quick. Find a stochastic. All right, and we'll do D. Sure, we'll leave the default settings. And we are just basically also kind of essentially programming in there, if you will. Not only does the crossover have to occur, but it has to agree with the stochastic slope. Okay, so in other words, you might get a long cross, but you're not going to get a confirmation unless the slope of the stochastic is also going up as well. Okay, so if I were to just instantiate this, like so, and we got to enable that strategy, sorry, so we got to go back here and go to enabled, so that's true. All right. Okay, so you'll see these strange looking bars on the bottom here for those of you that are new. And you could, and actually, let me just pull up the stochastic while we're at it. All right, so stochastics, okay. I'm not going to bother formatting that. The D is the green line. Okay, so if we look at the green line, you'll see that whenever it's sloping down, we got some red there. Okay? In most cases, we got the half red bars. Okay, and this is what I'm going to get at with the logic template. So if I go here, now I've got these two components here. I can sort of feed these into individually into the using a logic template. So right now it's sort of merging the two criteria, because if you look closely, see whenever this green line is starting to go down like this, you start to see these reds. Whenever the green line's going up like this, you start to see green. Okay, so that's basically half the equation. So in fact, if you look at this, I'm going to disable the cross. But you see, if I just leave it at stochastic slope, you can see how the slope of the stochastic is mirrored by BloodHound's BloodHound's output there. And conversely, if I were to just click on the crossover, you'll see that clearly all we're marking here is sort of is the crossover points, as you can see, that are illustrated up here with these SMAs. Okay, but I put them on together like this, and you sort of get this combined view, if you will. And you also notice that you don't actually get a signal unless they both agree. So it's almost like, if you see these half bars, that's sort of telling you 50% of the criteria is being met. And so the stochastic slope may be up in this case, but you don't have a crossover until you get to this point. And then likewise, you get a crossover here. It's hard to see, but there's actually a cross up and then cross down almost immediately, so there's a cross up and down. And that's why you get this kind of flip-flopping. And you can see actually the stochastic responded down here too by flipping down as well. Okay, so a simple example, crossover with the stochastic, and actually that doesn't look too bad, to be perfectly honest, if you just glance at it in terms of entry signals. But what I'm going to show you now is what we can do with these logic nodes, logic templates. Okay, because I'm sort of going about your question, Bob, in a long way. Apologize. It's just because I'm just kind of laying the foundation for some of the new people. So same idea here. This time, you notice you got this result node here, and you can actually plug into this result node, and you'll see this in depth with the more advanced section when I get to it later. That this result node is essentially, that's what you want as your output, if you will. Okay, so recall that 210 cross that I had before. So if I click it on and instantiate it onto the logic template like so, right? Notice if I select it on the right hand side, I see the 2 and the 10 SMA cross that I had defined earlier. Okay, so the crossover again, it's just 2 indicators crossing over each other. As soon as I plug that in, boom, you see basically the crossover is being marked. Okay, so and likewise, if I were to put the stochastic in there and remove this one and then add this one, it's very similar to what I did earlier with just checking them on and off. But you can see that now it's just the stochastic in there too by itself. And the beauty of BloodHound is now you can take these and you can do operations on them. So by default, the solvers, when there's no logic template selected, it will output an average or a ratio of all your criteria. And this, basically, I'm going to use the words criteria and solvers almost interchangeably. So don't be confused if I sort of go back and forth between the two. But what I'm getting at is this is like the equivalent of doing this. If I had a ratio node, I plug them both in like that, like so, and I pop that into the result. You see the very familiar pattern that we just saw literally like 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, and that's the 50%. You can see that whenever the stochastic slope is positive, you see this 50% value here, and you see the 100% when they both agree. Okay, so that's a little tidbit of information. Is the ratio node is essentially the same thing. Plugging everything into the ratio node is the same thing. It's just leaving it in this screen, if you will, with no logic template selected. Okay. Okay. So now I have essentially I got logic template 1. All right. Let's call this one. Let's call this entry with stock. Okay. And then I'm going to create a new one and make this one just the crossover by itself. Okay? So we actually have 2 different crossovers. We have 2 different logic templates now. right? One that I've named entry cross only, and one I've named entry with stochastics. Okay, so if you note, I can see this little drop down there. I can actually switch between the two, and those are saved with the file, right? Actually, I think our strategy is live, so I mean, it will probably even try to trade if something happens. You could. That's sort of a thing. We didn't sort of put any shackles on it in terms of, you know, if you want to be editing your system while you're trading, I mean, you can go right ahead and do that. I'm not sure if I'd recommend doing that, but it's nonetheless, if you want to, you can. Okay, so at the moment we do not have any stops in place. So let me. That's probably not a good thing. So let me just throw some in there real quick. So that means we're going to have to. Actually, I should have saved it as something else. I just saved over the crossover file. But let's save this as SI cross example. Stock. Okay. All right, and let me just get rid of these other guys here. I'm going to disable that, which will shut everything down. Edit it, and this is where we this is where sort of Bob's questions comes in here. Okay, so remember, just recall I just created those two different templates. Now, if I hit this drop down, you'll see that the two templates are here. Okay, so I can choose between essentially three choices. None is actually a choice, right? If you choose none, you get the default kind of view that you saw earlier, right? With that sort of simulated ratio note for 50%. You know, you kind of get that pattern. You get the 50% pattern, 50 and 100% pattern, which is, you know, it's actually equivalent to this template that we've designed here. But we can also specify which template we want to use as the entries. Okay, so the point is, you may have different maybe different methods of trading depending on maybe the market condition, or, you know, maybe the instrument, and you decide to, you know, they're similar enough that you put them into one BloodHound file. You can create a bunch of different templates, and then just simply select which one you want to use as your entry signal. Okay, so let's use the one with the stochastic. And then here we have a couple other choices. You know, actually, let me cover this real quick. But yeah, BloodHound can sort of you can sort of restrict BloodHound a little further by using this confidence use compare. And what this is it's probably not named as well as we probably could name it, but the whole point of this little setting is that it's supposed to you can restrict it so that you know, say a long signal and a short signal come in at the same time, or you got maybe a long signal that's, oh, I don't know, the confidence value is pretty high, it's maybe 0.8, and then you got a short confidence that's, you know, that also came in a little bit. Like you've probably seen some of these. Oh, jeez. Why don't I just bring up a chart here, and I might just make it simpler. Sorry, guys. All right, where's my 1 minute chart? Okay, this is really dizzy looking, but okay, don't worry about the stuff on top. I just want to draw your attention to this bottom part. Okay, but you see how you can actually design these templates to be complicated enough that they're not just discrete signals. Like you can design these templates so you got these kind of intermediary values. You've got these what we call confidence levels. And, you know, the short and long side in this case is mirrored, and that's just because Zach could design it in such a way that it is. But maybe the one down here isn't. You can see that it looks almost random, but you can see that the short and long values are totally different lengths. So what you can require it to do is you can restrict it, a signal from trading, you know, and you can sort of think of these, you know, these bars as like confidence values, right? So your system may be more, you know, less discrete and more of a fuzzy type system, right? Where you have, you're just measuring like, you know, a lot of confidence in the long direction or a lot of confidence in the short direction. And so you get these kind of bars that don't, you know, don't go from 0 to 1 necessarily, but have these intermediate values. Okay, so again, like, let me just cover this because it might be a little bit busy, but all I'm concerned about is just, oh, I just want to show you what's going on down here. Okay, so if you look down here where my cursor is, okay, imagine this little bar here. Okay, this is telling you essentially that, oh, we're very confident on the short side compared to the long side, because this bar, the short bar, is much longer. So you may have a system that's designed as more like, okay, I want the short side to be at least 0.3 more than the or sorry, at least 3 times more than the short side or whatever before it's considered a signal. So what you can do is you can actually restrict that and restrict BloodHound from not giving a signal unless the long side exceeds the short side, by by a ratio of x. So if I hit true, for example, okay, now you see there's a ratio here. Okay, so this is telling BloodHound, all right, don't give me a signal in any direction unless it's at least 1.5 times more than the signal in the opposite direction. Okay, that's what that setting does. So it actually eliminates signals when you have conferences going in both directions. Okay, so it's probably not used that much, and it might be maybe just because we haven't really explained it well enough, and it's possibly one of those things that you have to almost be explained before you can it's not very discoverable, if you will. Okay, so that's what that little feature is. Under here we have trade management. Okay, and this is the default settings, and you can create basically simple targets, profit targets, and stop losses based off of ticks or percentage. Oops, if you don't put anything there, it'll scream at you. Or percent. Price is something we're going to eliminate because this is practically and virtually useless. It's for absolute price value. We just haven't gotten around to getting rid of it. But anyways, we're going to keep it at ticks. And say we want something like 10 ticks, a 10-10 system. In other words, a 10 tick profit target and a 10 tick stop loss. That's how you would represent it. And you can also elect to change your stop loss into a trailing stop if you want. Okay, so one thing I want to let you know is if you select none here. Okay, so right now we've got three options again. If you select one of these options, it will stay with this template regardless of what's being shown on the screen. Okay, so what I'm getting at is if I select entry with stochastic, all right, and then I enable this guy. Okay, so immediately I can see it's painted on the chart, entry with stochastic, but you see oops, actually it's painted cross only. Did I select cross only? What did I select? Let me take a look. All right, what I want to get at is I selected entry with stochastic. Okay, so what I'm getting at is what you see on the screen is not necessarily what it's trading. It's trading entry with stochastic. Okay, because that's what I set it at. But I can view any other. I can view any of them. It doesn't really matter. So if you notice, like, okay, so entry with stochastic is what it actually traded. So that's why it only took this signal. That's why it only took this signal. And if you notice, if I switched over to here, it didn't take this signal, and it didn't take this signal either. Okay, and it didn't because I had explicitly told it I want entry with stochastic. Okay, so just beware if you set it to your entry as a certain logic template, it doesn't matter what you've got up here. It's what you're viewing. Okay, this just changes your view. It's still going to trade what you selected. Okay, so you can even create new ones. It doesn't matter. It's not going to affect your trades. It's not going to affect your entry signals. Okay, so it's only going to trade what you've actually explicitly selected. Okay, if you want to be able to select it on the fly, okay, I'm going to disable that and edit. What you actually do is you put this to none. All right. So if I put this to none, what happens is it will trade what you see. So right now it sees entry with stochastic, But if I go to cross only, it will actually trade cross only, and I can switch it on the fly. So, just be aware of that, because that could be both very dangerous and powerful. Anything that's powerful actually is quite dangerous. But we don't want to sort of tie your hands behind your back. We sort of assume you know what you're doing, and so in other words, there isn't a safety valve here, is what I'm getting at. And what this enables you to do is, if you have, say a order pending, and there goes the trade. Okay, so you can see that it was trading across. In this case, the stochastic was agreeing with it, so I can't really prove that that I switched it and had a trade, only because I switched it. But imagine you had 2 or 3 different possible systems depending on what you're seeing. Okay, so maybe you have you like to trade this way, and there's a lot of traders I know that kind of want to mix their discretionary trading a little bit with the systematic trading, because there's certain things that are very difficult to express using simple indicators. Things like, what's the market condition, right? So, right now we've got a very kind of volatile up and down market, large swings. Okay, if you scroll back, you see this is the zone. This is a very choppy zone here. So, maybe you have a different strategy or different template for dealing with chop, and you want to be able to switch your strategy on the fly. You want to be able to switch your trading method based on what you see. Okay, so what you could potentially do is create one file, create 3 or 4 different logic templates, one for each kind of strategy that you've got, and then switch between these on the fly, and then basically switch your entries on the fly. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, so that's what that lets you do. Is if you select that if you put that to none, is it will trade what you see. If you explicitly select a logic template, it will trade only that logic template. So if you combine this with your ATM strategy, you can imagine there's a lot of manual power that you can get with this computer assist. So let me illustrate here, but to trade with your ATM interactively, just because of a little quirk with NinjaTrader, what we have to do is actually open up a second chart. Okay, so I have to open up a second chart, but not put the strategy on the chart. Okay, so on my right-hand side is the same instrument, the same time frame. It doesn't have to be any time frame you want, in fact. It doesn't matter. But what you can do now is this button here. You see, this is the chart trader. You notice how it's grayed out on this side, and it's grayed out because NinjaTrader does not allow you a chart trader on the same chart as a strategy that's running. Okay, so we got the strategy on the left-hand side, and this right-hand side we got a free chart. So we could actually use this second-hand chart here, to control positions on the fly. Right. So let me provide an example. So I think I have an ATM defined here, not a very sophisticated one, but let's just take a quick look at it and see what it does. Order filled. Okay, so I got a very simple one that's just a 101, one stop, one target. Let's close that sucker. Let me just take a look at my template too, see what I got there. Order filled. Okay, so this one's a little more complicated. Yeah, I might do this one just to illustrate, the flexibility here. This is basically one that they'll take off 2 contracts, put 5 contracts on, take 2 off in a kind of a very narrow profit target. I went short, by the way, and then kind of use 3 to do a runner, a very long runner. It's great for catching those trends and stuff. So what I can do is I can actually get Raven to activate this template when a signal comes in. Okay, so let's go into Edit Strategy, and again I'm going to leave this to none because I want that manual flexibility. And this time under Manage Trades, instead of using Default, I'm going to go to ATM. Okay, so this is where you do it. notice that a lot of stuff disappears. And I'm going to type in my ATM template, which is my template 2. Okay, so these have to match. If they don't match, it's not going to work. All right, so hit OK. And let's enable it. All right, and let's see if we can force a signal. So I'm going to do one on the crossover only, just so we can get more signals and I can force it to enter. But I'm going to, again, this is simulated. I'm not doing this in the live market or anything. I just want to show you the aspects of the software here. Okay, so we're going to cross over, and we've told Raven to just to do things on the close of the bar, right? So this one technically didn't cross until this bar opened, so it will not activate until this bar closes, which it has. So on the right-hand side, now you can see I've got the ATM automatically entered, and here you could just take over just like you were trading the ATM manually. So I can go in and I can fiddle with the stops. You know, I mean, it's up to you, right? You may not be this kind of trader where you like to manually fiddle with it. You like to just set it and go and do not touch it because that's part of your rules. But you may also be one of those, you know, there are a lot of sophisticated discretionary traders that, you know, wouldn't mind sort of an auto entry, the computer to get them in automatically, but they want to be able to manage it from there, you know, because they know they can manage trades better than you know, a simple stop and target stop loss could possibly you know, do. And I've definitely seen traders in action that can do very impressive stuff, you know, managing stuff manually. So you know, kind of, it depends, you know, on your trading style, and BloodHound will sort of cater to whichever way you like to trade. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Bob. And I might have gone probably more in depth than you wanted to know, but I figured for everyone's benefit that would help everybody. So let me just scroll through the questions and take a quick look here. Oh, yeah, good idea. I should have put that one to yellow. Randy was saying I should have made that yellow. Hans asked, Jeremy, is there a way to add some offset to a signal, for example, to a draconian channel exit? Yeah, there's a couple ways to do that. Absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so I will just because you know, I don't totally recommend. Well, I mean, you can do whatever you want, obviously, and your BloodHound's not going to stop you. But you know, you probably don't want to be, you know, editing your signals and changing your logic nodes and that sort of thing while your strategy is actually active and actually trading. Unless, of course, you're doing sim, and that's kind of what you want it to do. But you know, even with that, there's really no necessity for that sort of added complexity. So I'm going to shut all this stuff down, kill this guy, all right? And I'm going to just add BloodHound by itself up here and illustrate how we do a displacement or an offset. Displacement and offset, I realize the term, I think, in NinjaTrader is offset. I could be wrong. Someone told me it was offset, and I should change these displacements to offsets. But you know, it's interchangeable. When I say displacement, it means offset, vice versa. Actually, there are displacements, by the way. Yeah, that's an NinjaTrader setting there. Okay, so anyway, all right, let's get back to a simple example, and I think Hans wanted a draconian channel, so you know, I will throw that on there. All right, and to be perfectly honest, Hans, I'm not super amazingly familiar with draconian channels. Other than that, I sort of figure they're kind of like Bollinger Bands, except with a different calculation. So hopefully I won't make a total fool of myself here. All right, let's do the same thing, lavender, sure. And I can type things fast so I can select it. Okay, and let's do a kind of gray, oh, let's do white, sure. White dotted line, and see how that looks. Okay, dash line, let's take a look at that. Okay, hopefully it doesn't look too busy. I've seen some really busy charts from some traders, and I don't think I'm too bad here. So let me get rid of some of these. Okay. Okay, so Hans is looking for a displacement, and actually, damn, I should probably not have gotten rid of those. All right, so let me put that back on, because, or actually, you know what? Let's just use the draconian channel. All right, okay, so let's, because these range bars are kind of constricted, I don't see anything piercing the channels here. You know, so let's switch the time frame and see if we can get something a little more drastic. Maybe probably tick chart, huh? Let's try tick chart. Okay. If not, I'll just use the center channel. Okay, yeah. So I get, you know, I apologize. I'm not super familiar with the draconian channel. It looks like it's really well contained in there, so I don't think it doesn't look like it ever pierces it. Okay. One thing we can do, okay, say this midline here. You know, say we want to do a quick test of when the price kind of goes above or below this little midline. All right, that's just a simple comparison, or depends. Okay, depends on what you want to look for. If you're looking for zones, if you will, where it's above or below, comparisons is the one you want to use. Otherwise, if you're just looking for those discrete crossover points, then crossover is what you want. So let's put both of them on, and you know, we can muddle around with them. Okay, so let's call this compare. And what we're going to do is, instead of indicator, okay, we're comparing again price against the draconian channel. So I'm going to choose the closing price and choose the draconian channel here. And I apologize if I am not pronouncing it correctly. And we want the mean, right? So here we can select these. You notice we got the three different plots here. We got the upper and lower channel. We got the mean channel. Okay, so we want to compare for both the long and short evaluation. We want to compare against the mean. And as soon as I do that, right, we can see that kind of when we're below that mean value, that little dotted line, we are red, and as soon as we pop above it, we are green. And likewise, if I want to go in and do kind of the same thing, but instead of you know, these big thick zones of reds and greens, I just want like discrete you know, discrete markings of when it crosses over. I'm going to use essentially set it up almost the same way, but just use the crossover. Okay, and let's leave that alone by itself. So now you can see, now we just get the points where it's actually crossing above or below, where you see it's got a little muddled there, but you can clearly see when it went from below back to above, we got a crossover. Okay. By the way, one thing I should mention, this is a really subtle feature, but you see this little zone here, okay? Notice how we're actually on the line, okay? We have, well, the thing closed below it here, but you see how we went above it, but not quite above it. We actually equaled it, and then we pop back down, right? That may or may not be what you want. So we have this little setting down here called accept equal values, and this will change the calculation slightly to consider, you know, these cases where you're actually on the line but you're not actually technically above it. So if I set this to false, we'll see some of these disappear, because what happens is BloodHound is no longer considering this as a cross above anymore, or it's not considering this to have broken the barrier, if you will. So there's no longer, this no longer considers these crossed down. So you see how this bar went up and literally touched it and equaled the value. So it didn't actually exceed it, but it equaled it. And you may or may not want to include that in your cross. So you can actually set this to false, and it will ignore instances where the bar didn't quite, like, it equaled the value. Okay, so if I set it back to true, you'll see that we do get a couple signals there, and you're probably wondering, well, why did this thing consider it a cross up? Well, that's why we got the before and after. Okay, so what it's doing here, it's saying, well, if I am equal before and then something dipped down, call that a crossover, but don't call it a crossover if just because I've equaled the value, right? So say you want this first bar to actually throw you a value out, or throw you a signal out. If you set that to true, anytime it does actually touch it, it'll consider that a crossover as well. Okay, so you see how it closed above, closed literally right on the line. Because we set that to true, that actually will consider a crossover. Now if we do both, we're just going to get lots of greens and reds. Okay, so it's sort of it's very subtle, and what those are useful, or for things like especially if you have indicators that are measuring highs and lows, closes, and maybe historical highs and lows and closes, and you want to be very specific about if you want to be very specific about it having to match it or actually exceed it. So you got sort of that fine-tuned control right here. And sort of the default behavior is kind of what NinjaTrader would do with its default function, which is this pattern here, true and false. And just note that we actually didn't have this. We actually, I think, defaulted this originally to false, I believe. And so there were a couple signals that people were saying, hey, this should have fired off one, but it didn't. So we finally just said, well, let's just default it to kind of what NinjaTrader does in its own code. And then if people are sort of advanced enough to know what they want exactly, then they can enhance it from there. Okay, so anyways, sorry about that huge digression. I want to show you what the displacement is. Okay. Couple ways you can do this. All right, I can simply just displace the Draconian channel by changing this value here. Okay, if I do that, everything gets shifted by a certain amount. And what it's doing is kind of like, all right, imagine the Draconian channel all of a sudden just completely move to the what am I saying, the left? Yeah. Let's move it by a lot just to make sure I haven't got myself going backwards here. Let's just try 3. All right, so none of these actually change, but okay. So all right, maybe a little easier to illustrate with the crossovers actually, because even I'm getting a little confused. Okay, so this is one of two ways. Okay, this may or not suit the way you want to go, but let's just throw the 210 back on there. Actually, let's do 1030 because that gives a little less signals. And I will go with Randy's suggestion of yellow this time. Okay, let's make that 3. That's a 10, that's a 30. Let's go with cyan 4. Okay. Oops. All right. So let's go SI training workshop demo 2. Okay. And okay, that looks very clear. You can see the nice crossovers. Thanks, Randy, for that color suggestion. Okay, and let's go in and let's use the crossover example again. 1030 cross. Okay. 1030. Okay, 1030 cross. Okay, and let's just do that by itself. All right, so apologize for the slightly messy chart with the Draconian channel on there, but I thought this might be a little easier to illustrate the two lines. At least it is for me. It's hard to compare price sometimes. It's kind of the bar, right? You know, it's easier to sort of look at these lines instead. Oh, Donchian. Ah, that's how I pronounce it. Donchian. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. And now, what I do if I were to displace one? Okay, it's the equivalent of doing this. Okay, you notice that if I go here, right, I got actually a displacement value here. I can displace this 10, say the SMA 10, by, I don't know, let's say 3 bars. Right, let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that just moves the 10, I believe, backward. Well, I'll probably get it confused. It delays it by 3 bars. Okay, obviously you can't move it. You can't move it forward because you can't see into the future. If you could, you would be a billionaire many times over, and wouldn't need to be listening to me. Okay, so I can match that now if I hit 3 here. Okay, now you can see that it's like this indicator has been displaced. It's been shifted, if you will, 3 bars back, 3 bars behind. Okay, so that's kind of one way you can do it. Okay, although I have a feeling that's not exactly what you're asking, Hans. So what I'm going to show you is this logic node we now have. Okay, so if you want to delay your signal, right? So you got these discrete signals which no longer line up with this yellow bar or yellow line because it's been shifted by 3. So like I said, remember, BloodHound is independent. It will do its calculations independent of what you've got on your screen. So I've got these on there just for illustrations purposes only. But just watch this for 1 second. Okay, so I've got my 1030 cross up there, and I've got this new function node called a lookback. Okay, and the lookback does a couple of neat things. One of which is it can displace, but it can also attenuate signals. It can do kind of neat little fancy things. So I'm sort of transitioning slowly here to the advanced stuff now, okay? Because this question actually suits it quite well. But right now it's defaulted to displace things by 1. And you can watch this. If I sort of plug the lookback into the 1030 cross into the lookback and then plug this into the result, you'll watch the chart very closely as I do that. The signals will shift. They will delay by 1. Okay? So I can delay it even more. I can delay it by 3, 4, 5, 10, doesn't matter. You know, so I can shift these bars over. So it's kind of it's an offset, if you will, right? And also a neat thing to note is if I were to actually create a lookback period that's longer than just 1, say 3. So I'm basically telling it, all right, look 3 bars back, and within those last 3 bars, if I've got a signal, you know, do something with it. Okay. By default, it's averaging it. So if originally it was like we had a 1, and then we had 2 zeros, right? The average of 1 signal and 2 zero signals is a third. And so what it's doing is it's carrying forward an average of 33% for these for three signals, so 3 bars. If that's not what you want, you can do what's called a max, and that will give you the highest value within the 3 last bars. And in this case, the highest value in the 3 last bars, if you had a signal, would have been a 1, and that's why you get 1s carried forward, or you get the full confidence value getting carried forward. So that's a way you can also, I suppose, extend a signal as well. So there's many ways to skin the cat. those of you that are pretty sharp will realize, and you've seen some of these function nodes, we do have a signal extender, and this look back can be literally configured to do what the signal extender can do as well. With mucking around with some of the settings. And Signal Center's got a couple extra fancy features in there called a reset and that sort of thing, which I'll illustrate as well. But I hope that kind of clears things up, Hans. So you got a couple options there, like again the displacement you can use, as well as the as this look back node, which will shift your signals and delay them if you want to. Okay. Randy's saying, commonly a user will create different systems with solver logic, and as example may create chop and trend entry logic templates. Since these entry templates may be reused, it is possible to copy the template in order to attach them to other solver templates. Yeah, so you can copy them. You can copy your template. So if you had a template that and you want to just make some very minor modifications to it, but you didn't want to redo all the work that you just did, just hit the copy button here. Right now I got two of them, and they look identical. They are identical, in fact. So I'm switching back and forth, and the two you can't tell the difference because they are identical. So that's a good way to just to work a little quicker. Hope that's kind of what you're asking there. Copy the templates in order to attach them to other solver templates. Yeah, I think that's what you're asking. Okay. All right. Cool. So I think I've cleared the questions up, and I'll move into kind of the second part of this program here, which will be the advanced stuff. So I hope again, if what I'm going to show you next just is rather confusing, like again, don't worry about it. It's not that it's you just gotta maybe have a little bit of experience with BloodHound. I'm talking just a week or two, for some people, and a lot of this stuff will make sense. So I've got an extremely busy chart up here, and most of you guys, being sophisticated traders, are not afraid of this kind of thing. Although I must admit, when something this crazy comes up here, sometimes I get a little bit intimidated. But what he has here is just some dummy values, right, to illustrate some points. Okay, so I don't even think, to be honest, I really need the price chart up there, because what we're going to do is just look at and do some fancy stuff with these little signals here. Okay, so what Zach has done as okay, sorry, I'm just reading the questionnaires. Randy's Dan and Randy, I think, are asking the exact same thing. Can I move the copy templates to a different strategy? Okay, the answer is yes and no. Okay, there is no way to do it as inside the BloodHound interface. But okay, let me just sort of think this through before I shoot myself in the foot. They're just XML files, and okay, this is for, I guess, really advanced people. If you can handle this. Let me pull up this XML file and show you what I mean. All right, you're about to see some behind-the-scenes stuff that most people will never see. But let me see what I've got here. All right, so unfortunately, no, there isn't a sort of automatic way to do that. Other than maybe just copying the file and making a duplicate of the file, and then going in and deleting stuff you don't need, and using that as a duplicate. But I guess since we've got some pretty advanced people here, let me just show you real quick. Oh, that's the wrong one, sorry. All right, so how many of you guys are afraid of, if you're afraid of XML, just look away for a little bit. All right. Okay, I'm going to bring up that this is the this is the XML code. Essentially, it's these save files are just XML codes, and this is that cross example stochastic that I had came up with earlier. Okay, now you could just simply copy chunks of this XML over, and you'll notice it's sort of divided. Kind of this really nice little editor I've got here is my development environment, and it actually lets you sort of compact things quite nicely so we can see what's going on. But basically, if you look here, all right, there's really three main sections. You got the solvers, logic templates, the timeframes. Okay, if you haven't followed the timeframes, you literally don't even have to worry about it. But basically, the solvers, the logic templates refer to solvers that are in this solver section here. So assuming you've got the right solvers and everything in both files, you could, in theory, just take your logic template, right? So each one, so notice that under logic templates, I've got two defined here. You probably recognize them. One was that stochastic with the entry with stochastic. The other one was the entry cross only, right? And you could, in theory, just cut and paste this stuff into your other file. Okay. One caveat you have to worry about a little bit is this guy right here. All right, these are the nodes. Okay, so what you need to worry about is the some of these logic nodes may be referring to solvers. Okay, so these are logic nodes that refer to solvers, and these ID values refer to the solvers that are in the solver list here. Okay, so in the solver list, I've got indicator crossover, I've got indicator slope, and you see I've got these ID values. Right, so these node structures, okay, these are like, in these node structures, you'll see these ones that call logic solver value nodes, and they're just nodes that point to these solvers. So you just got to make sure that what you've got here, these solvers, these nodes that point to these solvers, have ID values that correspond to these ones up here. Okay, so if you're not afraid of editing, or not editing, but just cutting and pasting some XML code, that's kind of the way you could do it. I realize that's not an elegant solution for those of you that are looking to do it in more of a quicker way, but eventually we're going to have like cut and paste support and that sort of thing. But at least at the moment we don't have that. We just don't have that in there yet. But these are just XML files that are readable. And they're just text files. So that's one way you could do it if you're not sort of daunted by that stuff. Okay, so that's what I needed, Jeremy. I wasn't exactly sure. Cut and paste work. It would, yes. So yes. Okay, so it looks like Randy, you have a problem with that. Dan, I know. I think you're pretty advanced, if I remember. So I hope that would help you as well too. Okay, Hans just responds here. Thanks again, but what I actually wanted to realize is a vertical offset onto a signal. One or two ticks above or below a given signal within a strategy. Would this be possible? What I actually want to realize is a vertical offset onto a signal. One or two ticks above or below a given signal. Okay, so I think what you're asking is you want it to be close but not quite, right? And you still want it to fire a signal. Is that what I hear? If that's the case, okay, so there's a couple of strategies you can use to do that. All right, so okay, so I think what Hans is actually asking is, all right, what I really want to do is, okay, let's go back to none here so I can. Right, well, actually that didn't. It's like once I've got templates, we're stuck with them. All right. Okay, so Hans is asking, all right, so I don't necessarily want this thing to cross. I just want it to be close enough within a certain threshold for us to generate some sort of signal. Okay, so that's actually using the compare as well. Okay, so I'm assuming you probably want to see if you're close. You know, you're close to this line, right? That's probably what you're getting at. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and we'll just make a new one here and put the comparison up. So this can be done with the comparison. Okay, so you don't want crossover. What you want is comparison, because you're now comparing the closing price to one of these edges. Okay, so it depends on what you're. It looks like you're probably doing maybe a counter trend type, mean reversion type system. So I'm guessing when you get close to this bottom Draconian channel, you want to be looking at taking longs, and when you're getting close to this upper channel, you want to be looking at taking shorts, right? Is that kind of where you're getting at? Okay, so we still want to evaluate the closing price against the Draconian channel, but what we're going to do is we're going to use the upper channel for the short evaluation and the lower channel for the long evaluation. Okay, right. So what we want to do is we want to see if this gets close enough and small enough, this difference between the two, that we want to actually go short, and vice versa on the bottom side. Right. So, all right. Let's just take a quick peek at this, and I think I might actually get that backwards. Hang on. Short side, we want the upper channel. Okay, so I think, yeah, okay. Okay, a couple ways we go about this, and because BloodHound is just sort of naturally tended, it's going to subtract A from B, so it's going to subtract the closing price from your channel. So actually, what we want to do is kind of reverse this. We want to put the Draconian channel up here and the price down there, and that'll just make things a little easier for us. So. All right, let's go here and put the Draconian channel back up here. All right, or Danchin channel. Okay, and we want. And sometimes you just got to fiddle with it, and it gets a little confusing when you kind of got these ups and downs and lefts and rights and that sort of thing. And sometimes you just got to fiddle with it until you get what you need here, what you want. But it can be dyslexic if you're dyslexic. It's difficult. Okay, so anyways, what we got to do is we got to fiddle with these large and small amounts. These are kind of like tolerances, or these little guys here will let you create kind of a band where you can muddle around with them. So right now we only get something when we're 0 ticks away. So let me just throw a value in there right now. Let's just take a look at the chart and see if we get anything here. And I might be embarrassing myself because we're not getting anything showing up here. Okay, so all right, let's see. We need to get A minus B. We need actually, maybe we were fine just going the other way around. Let's go back to what we had before. All right, let's take a quick peek there. All right, that's kind of what we want, but the opposite by the looks of it, right? All right, I'm on a 150 tick. We want the closing price to compare to the lower value on the long side and shorts. Okay, yeah, so that's right. Okay, we just got things kind of going backwards though. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm going to create a bit of a range here, right? This range is going to be from 0 to 5 ticks, and the idea is when we get within the 5 tick range of this channel, we want some action to happen. Okay, so what do we want exactly? Well, let's just take a look. Okay, so all right, it looks like our 5-tick range is, all right, A greater than B. All right, so if this closing price is greater than the, okay, on the long side, okay, sometimes it's good to just think about one side first before doing the other side. So I'm going to just consider the long side. But okay, so if this long side, if we have our indicator, if the closing price is greater than the channel's long side only, so channel's lower side, we're greater than the channel's lower side. It's funny how you can take two elements and just, you know, the infinite combinations you can do with these two elements. It can be a little confusing. You know, and I'm probably freezing up here a little bit because a little bit under the gun, but let's just see if I can figure this out without making too much of a fool of myself here. Okay, so we want the long side to compare to the short side, the long side closing price, and we want the lower, okay. Right, okay, yeah, so yeah, we're on the right track. Okay, so we want indicator A, if it's greater than B by 5 ticks more, greater than B by 0 ticks. Okay, yeah, so this is one kind of easy way to do it. There's many ways to skin the cat, folks. I mean, we can do quite a lot of different ways. So I'm just going to make this, you know, make this 5 ticks as well, right? And what I'm going to do is tell it, all right, if we are less than 5 ticks away, right? Less than B by 5 ticks, give me a 1 and a long output. Let's just see if we have a long side. No, we don't. All right, I think here. As you can see, I'm a little rusty with this. Okay, let's just get rid of the short side first, so it's a little less distracting. Okay. All right, we want the long side. We want A minus B, A being the closing price, which would be greater than the lower channel by 5 ticks. Let's just increase this just a little bit here. What kind of range are we dealing with here? Let's see. We got 94.16. Okay, this is only 1 tick, 2 ticks. Okay, we got a small range here. 4 ticks. All right, so within 5. Okay, so A. Okay, let's just put this in. There we go. Okay, so that's like what we're looking for here. Okay, so all right. Okay. All right. Okay. And by the way, all right. Let me explain. A minus B neutral is kind of like saying I want to be under. I want the difference to be smaller than this small amount, which is in this case 5 ticks. Okay, so you see we've got. Oh, okay, all right. I'm sort of sorry, just recovering from a brain freeze here. But okay, yeah. Okay, so what we're looking for, this little middle value is what we call the neutral value or neutral zone, which is defined by being smaller than the smaller amount. Okay, so if we're looking for like tight, what do you call it? Like tight spaces or like when two indicators are really close to each other, the value that you're concerned about is actually this neutral value, which is typically 0. In other words, have to be equal. But we can define this neutral value to sort of be a 5-tick range by setting this small amount to 5. Okay, does that make sense? So large amount doesn't actually do anything in this case. And like I said, there's probably a couple other ways you could configure this. But say you want to just you want to look for these narrow ranges of 5 ticks or less. Maybe 3 ticks. If you said 1 or 2 ticks, I think you said, Hans, right? So you can see here what I've got again. I've put the indicator A as closing price, indicator B as your Donchian channel. On the lower side, we're looking for the possible long opportunity, and we want to look at the upper channel for possible shorter opportunity. Okay, so by changing this neutral value to give me a strong output when we have this closeness, if you will, that's how you can get the output that you're looking for. So I'll do the same for the short. Okay, so now you can sort of see it's sort of. I hope this is what you're looking for, Hans. But yeah, so you can see like I've got this kind of 5-tick range now, and whenever we get within this 5-tick range on the upper side, we're looking to go short, and whenever we get this 5-tick range on the lower side, we're looking to go long. Hans asks, I hope there would be a feature to simply add an offset to a given signal. I'm not sure what you mean by. You mean like to make it thicker? Is that what you're trying to do, or are you trying to like vertical offset, like make this go up and down? I'm afraid we don't do any modifications to the sort of input data like that. I'm just running through my head to see if there's a possible way to do that, and I can't think of any at the moment, Hans. So no, I don't think there is a way to do a vertical offset. Short of coding that, which actually would be fairly simple to do. It's really just one line of code. Yeah, sorry, Hans. I don't think I can't think of anything off the top of my head that could do that. That could sort of offset things by 1 or 2 ticks in a vertical sense. Okay. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of we design. And it's like I said, it's been a little while since I've actually first of all done demos, but also mucked around some of these compare values. But there's enough flexibility here that you can do things. You can create ranges, and you basically the whole point is you want to compare 2 values of any sort. You have basically these different range values that you can manipulate, and you can custom tailor the output to however you feel. So there's not fiddling around. You can pretty much simulate any kind of offset type behavior that you want using the comparison indicator. Ryan is saying, how do I may need to use the SI chameleon so they can use the high within 5 ticks of the upper band? I think Hans is asking if what if can I take this Donchian channel and can I shift it up and down, maybe create a range? I think that's kind of what you're asking there, Hans. Again, you could accomplish the same kind of thing, if you're just looking for instances where your price is getting close to your Donchian channel. Just muck around with these ranges here until you get the desired effect. And of course you got control of the output. So in theory you should be able to simulate kind of anything you need in terms of Donchian channels. Sorry, in terms of vertical offsetting, without actually explicitly having to do that. Okay, so yeah, I hope that answered your question there, Hans. And you know, I mean, with BloodHound, there's so many ways to skin the cat. I mean, you can do, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do almost anything. You know, just like we sort of give you a bunch of basic building blocks, and like I said, there's no set way of using them in any respect, but yeah, that's the idea, is to give you the flexibility, and you guys are the artists, right? You can take it away and paint whatever kind of picture you want to paint. Okay, so let's get on with, and I probably only have time for a couple of these, and that's good, because then that gives Zach a chance to do some of these next week. But what I'm going to do is demo a couple of these, and I think Zach probably covered one or two of these already. Do you guys remember which ones he did cover in the last webinar? So I'm going to transition over to the function nodes, and I don't want to necessarily repeat exactly what he did. If you recall, my internet connection went out halfway through, and that sort of threw everything out of whack in terms of the recording and stuff. And thanks, Bob, by the way, for supplying the recording. And by the way, I do apologize if I'm a little bit behind with putting them up on the web. Unfortunately, it's sort of a two-pass process. I've got to render things twice, and just as of late, I just haven't had the opportunity to get the renders done for the past week or two. So I have up to December done, but the first January one hasn't been done yet. So, okay, so I'll just start with the inverter, because that's probably the easiest one. Okay, so what I've got here is this massive display chart. Okay, and so Zach wrote this really simple indicator. It literally just pulses signals. This looks like BloodHound, but it's not. Okay, in fact, I might just change the color just to make it a little less confusing. You know, so let's just go white, and sorry guys, oops. Let's see what that looks like. I just want to choose two different colors here. Okay, so that these bars here are not BloodHound bars. They're just a signal generation, a very simple indicator that Zach whipped up that just pulses signals, and we can use these signals that it pulses to see what effects the function nodes have. Okay, so this is Zach is kind of like a scientist. He's going in, he wants to see. He's also testing the software, and to do that, he wrote a little indicator that just pulses these nodes, or pulses the signals, so that we can read them in BloodHound and see if we're getting the desired desired effect from these function nodes. And so they also make a great way to demo what's going on, because we can mirror these pulses within BloodHound. So I'm going to do that and change those colors again. So I just change these colors to make it a little less confusing, because again, these guys are not BloodHound's signal. These are just pulsed signals. Okay, so what I'm going to do is bring up his little template, and hopefully we can demo some of this functionality here. Okay, so he's got basically a solver to represent each one of these each one of these guys. So the output for BloodHound is actually down here, and I think I selected the second one here. So he's got two outputs. I think he wants to be able to demo two different things simultaneously. So let me just make sure I got the right one. So let's go in and let's pick this guy, the 2.2. All right, so I got the bottom one here. Okay, so let me put that bottom one there, and then I'm going to actually open up a top one, the top chart. So we have both of them on there. They're identical, but they're just, the point is we're just trying to show maybe different effects simultaneously here. So I'm going to shrink that just a bit. I hope that still shows up pretty good on your monitors. But all right, so I'm going to pop the signal. threshold back in. Okay, cool, cool. We got both of them in there now. All right. All right. Now, why do we have that last signal there? That must be one of them. Must be on bar close, and one of them probably isn't. But anyway. Okay. So this top template, if I manipulate this top one, will reflect up here, and if I manipulate this bottom one, will reflect down here. And first thing I'm going to show you is the inversion node. Okay, so we are probably just take this bottom one here. This, I think, 1317 he's got. Synchronize with 1317. All right, so now, okay, so I'm just, by illustration, I'm just taking these signals and passing them through to BloodHound. Okay, so that's, I've taken this bottom guy, long, short, long, whatever, and I'm just piping it through to BloodHound on both up here and down, just to illustrate what we can do here. Okay, so we're just concerned with these last three panels. Okay, so this inverter node, okay, kind of does what it sounds like it does. And if you just watch closely on the bottom, I'm going to plug this 1317 into the inverter node, like so. And you notice, all right, some of you guys thought, well, if I invert it, it's going to switch my long and shorts shorts around, so I get long signals when I got long signals, and short signals when I got long signals. But that's actually not what it does, because if you recall, BloodHound works like this. It's got these long and short confidences. Say, so you might be, you might have a strong confidence in the short direction, and then you get a strong confidence in the long direction. And the opposite of that is no confidence, right? So the inversion node actually doesn't swap the long and shorts, but what it does instead is it inverts the confidence value. Okay, so if you look closely here, notice that all these sections here that were green become that were 1 become 0, and all these other sections that were 0 become 1. So it's inverting the confidence value, not the long and short value. So that's what the inversion node does by default. But you can also configure it to swap if you want. Okay, so if I select this inverter node and hit true, you notice that it's not only inverted it, but now it's also swapped the long and short values too. So it's inverted and swapped it. Okay, so there's a distinction between swapping and inverting. Okay, so if I were to you can fine-tune the control of your inversion. You can invert just one side or not. But if I were to not invert these sides, now look, I've swapped the two values, but you can see that they are not inverted. So I've just literally swapped them. So anything that was short has now been long, and anything that was long has now been short. So again, that's what the swap is, and that's the difference between swapping, and that's the difference between swapping and inverting. Okay, so is anybody confused by that? There's actually the distinction between swapping values and inverting them. Okay, so where this may come in handy is things like okay, imagine you design this perfect signal, and it works out that this signal is great for exits as well. Okay, so but it's not. It's this. For whatever reason, you design your signal and you've got it backwards. Say. You've got it so that your longs should really be shorts and your shorts should really be longs. And you could go back through your nodes and try to figure out how to reverse everything, but you don't want to do that for whatever reason. So maybe you think a certain way, you designed it that way, knowing that you could swap it. So you would go through and you could plug in a inverter node and just simply, swap it by hitting true and then not inverting them. So that's kind of one way to do it, or one possible application of it. And then likewise, inversion, it's a great tool for pardon me. Inversion is a great tool for reversing your confidence in something for whatever reason. So it could be just maybe you just found it was easier to design your system backwards or design it in such a way that the results came out inverted, and then you can use the inversion node to sort of to switch it around. Now, in contrast and very similarly, the long and short modifier does almost the same thing. So by default, the long and short modifier will invert. So if you just, sometimes it's, so if I go here and plug in the long and short modifier, it actually will swap by default. And then you could do things as well. So yeah, if you notice here, I swapped the values. So from here to here, they're exactly the opposite. But you can also shut one side off if you want. So if I just want to, if I design a criteria and there's a couple extra things in there and it's only designed for the long side, and you can actually shut the short side down, or you can shut the long side down. You could basically clear the whole thing if you want. But these are kind of ways to manipulate your signals coming out again. You've also got these other modes here, right? So I can mirror the values. I can say I want everything that was on the long side to also be mirrored on the short side, right? So this could be useful for non-directional type systems, and you've got some sort of criteria. You're worried about only crafting the long signal. The short signal does not look exactly, is nothing what you want it to look like. You can go in and you can just create one side only, and then and maybe use it, in this case, say a permissive to go long or short. So that's a possible use of that. And here you can do other things. You can actually average signals coming in. Right, so this here is taking an average of the long and short signals, which it doesn't mean much when you only have discrete signals. But say you've got continuous type signals from ranging from 0 to 1 and anything in between, and your short side looks completely different as well. And what you really want to do is just take an average of the two, because maybe you've got some sort of non-directional component that you're building. So the long and short modifier lets you essentially play with long and short signals and mix and match and perform mathematical functions between the two. Okay, so those are the two fairly, I say, one-dimensional functionals that we've got. Okay, so. Randy says it's pretty clear. I hope that's the case for everybody there. Okay, the look back node. I think I demoed that a little bit earlier, and this again is the node that lets you displace values. Okay, so you've noticed that the original is on top and the displaced one's on the bottom. Okay, so this will make it very clear actually. So right, if I displace it by 3, everything's delayed by 3 bars. Now here's where we can get a little fancy, right? If I put a look back period of 5, and you can see how it's basically, I wouldn't say extended the signal, but it's put an average. At least it's defaulted here to an average of the last 5 bars. And if there's only one signal, these are discrete signals, of course. So we're gonna get basically an average that looks like it's been divided by 5, so 0.20. So if I hit a max here, right now they're all 1s, and you can see I've got components where they overlap here. So that may or may not be useful for your system. But the look back, it just takes, you're feeding this whatever signal are coming out, and you're looking back through the chain, and you're doing stuff with it. You're displacing it. You're finding the maximum value or the minimum value. Okay, so this very basic building block, I'm trying to think of a really good use for it, but it could be something like, maybe you got a system that's like, well, I want to find the last 3 bar, or I want to see if there was I want to see if there was within the last 3 bars or something that pierced a channel or whatever. You want to carry that forward, if you will, like three bars, so that you can match it up with some other setup. The look back node could definitely help you there. And those that are pretty sharp will realize that there's actually another way to do that as well. It's called a signal extender. And I will show that next. Okay. So we do have a couple of these nodes here that have, you notice, these reset values, and I'll explain that in a second. But the signal extender by itself does something very similar to look back when I've configured it in that way. But what I can do is I can actually take a signal. So I took this short signal, for example, and extended it at 5 bars. And I can do more than that if I want to. But yeah, I mean, these are great for things like, again, so say you've got a say you want to line up 2 crossovers. Like, it's very difficult to take 2 crossovers and actually have them line up on the same bar. You're looking at 2 completely different moving averages, or whatever situations, or maybe you're looking at a crossover and you're trying to line it up with the stochastics, being above or below a certain threshold, or well, let's just take crossovers. That's probably the easiest way to explain it, because crossovers are discrete, right? They only occur on 1 bar. You got a crossover, it's only gonna give you a discrete 1 bar signal. Okay, but say you need this crossover to basically be, you need 2 crossovers before you take a signal for whatever reason, right? So, but you want a limit on it. You don't want this crossover to occur and then the next one to occur like 20 bars later. You don't want 20 bars later, you want that to be invalid. But you want it, if you say within, say, 5 bars, you want the 2 crossovers to occur. Signal extender is one way to accomplish that. Okay, so you can imagine you'll have, let's take an example. But imagine you had, a crossover and it was giving you signals every couple bars, and then you had a second crossover, and of course they're not lining up, but you want them within 5 bars. Then all you got to do is plug the signal extender into at least one of them, and you'll get, instead of 1 discrete bar, you get 5, and that way you can line them up a little easier. Okay, so what you can also do, though, is get a little fancy, because there could be something that may sort of destroy your setup, right? So let's still speak about this two crossover example, right? Let's just say that if you had something really bad happen on your stochastic indicator that told you no go, get out, don't take the trade, whatever you do, and you still had the signal extender going. What you could do is you could kill the signal extender by using the reset. Okay, so you could pop in you could basically design another condition that would cancel your go ahead, if you will, on the extender, and then plug that condition into the reset, which would basically halt the signal from extending. Okay, so if you look here, I've got these signals extended by 5, And I've chosen at the moment I've just said reset only when you get a signal on this little node on this reset input. Right, we know we don't have it plugged in, so you're not going to see anything. But why don't I plug in something like like what do we got, this 4.4 here. Okay, so I'm going to plug the 4.4, which is this guy here, into the reset. Okay, so what happened is you saw a lot of stuff just disappear, and what's going on is when you see a signal on this 4.4, the signal extender will stop spitting out signals and reset the count. So this 4.4 is up here, and you can see on this bar here when this dual signal came in, right, that it basically cleared the signals going forward. So now you can use kind of another mechanism, if you will, to cancel out your extended signal, and that's what the reset nodes. That's what the reset inputs do. Is they're designed to cancel out whatever action is being taken by this function node. So, whatever condition, you can imagine that maybe you're plugging in the condition from your stochastics, right? From the example I'm talking about, your stochastic is screaming, no, don't do it. Just plug it into the reset, and they'll stop your signal from being generated, or stop your signal extender from spitting out new signals. So that's in concept how the reset works on pretty much all the function nodes. Very similarly, the signal blocker does the same thing. It's instead of extending the signals, it blocks the signals. So maybe you've designed a system where you've got a lot of these double bars happening, and you don't want the double bars for whatever reason. You use a signal blocker to essentially stop that. And if I illustrate, I can actually plug in the signal blocker. The signal blocker's input from the signal extender, and you'll see based off of these parameters. And the signal blocker we found actually probably still needs a little bit of tweaking for it to behave correctly. That's why we're still kind of in the beta, to be perfectly honest. But let's just take a look. Okay, so what I've done is I've put 0.5 to show the blocked output, but we had actually, it might be easier if I go up here and I try to replicate sorry guys, let me just set this up a little bit here. So I'm going to make these look the same, right? I'm going to put the signal extender there, right? And I have the 1317 plugged into there. Okay, so now I've got kind of the original up here, and then down here is where I'm going to use a signal blocker. So we just take a quick peek at it, and let's just take a look and see what happened there. So we blocked a couple signals. Actually, to be perfectly honest, that's not what I expected. So let me just take a quick look here. Okay, so all right, so I'm just gonna. What I'm doing is I'm showing blocked output still, just as these tiny little bars, just to illustrate, when this signal blocker is kind of active. And to be perfectly honest, like the signal blocker, I think is probably the node that we still need to do a little bit of work on. But in concept, what we're trying to do here is take, say you've got these repeating signals here, okay? For whatever reason, you've designed some sort of template, and you've got a couple of redundant signals, and you don't want that. You want to actually go to discrete signals. You plug in a signal blocker, and and then you see below, basically we get our first signal fire off, and then all the other ones beyond that are blocked in that direction. And that's kind of the bare bones implementation. So same concept goes there in terms of you can also use the reset to stop the blocking, so they will let signals pass through. And that's in concept what the signal blocker is. It's sort of the takeaway of redundant signals, or redundant consecutive signals. Okay, so that's the signal blocker. Counter is probably the one that we will show and demo the most, but it does what it sounds like it does. It counts signals coming in, and this could be very useful for criteria such as I want 5 bars, 5 up bars in a row before doing anything. I want I want this indicator X to be above indicator Y for 5 bars. It'll count 5 bars, and it won't generate a signal until it counts 5 bars, or counts X number of bars, right? So you could actually control, how far to look back too. So I mean, those bars don't have to necessarily be consecutive. Maybe you want 5 bars within the last 10 bars to have met some sort of criteria. You could use the signal counter for that as well. So let's do an example. And again, we're looking at the bottom one here, but I'm going to take, say, I don't know, this 5-5 signal that Zach's got, and I plug it in. Okay, so down here, so what it's doing is it's counting up to 3 signals. Do I have 3 signals within 3 bars? Okay, so that makes sense. 3 signals, 1, 2, 3. No, that does not look right. Let me just take a look at the 5-5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so right. Okay, we don't actually have a full signal. Sorry, they look like full signals when you don't actually look at the values. But this is only 30%. So it's okay. So anyways, let's try this out. So I want to count. I don't know. I want to count up to 2 bars within a 10-bar period. Oh, I guess that's right. It'll give me there's always 2 bars within 10 bars. Let me see if I can think of something that will be a little bit more dramatic to illustrate the point here. You know what? I could plug in this guy. Let's see, Zach had maybe some master plan involved when he sort of gave me this template, but let's see if I can come up with something that would explain this really well. Okay, well, you know what? Let's take kind of what we got up here and feed that into the counting node too. All right, so let's make these 3. Okay, so I'm going to put 3 up here, and I'm going to duplicate what we see up there down here as well. 3. Okay. All right, so that looks identical. And then what I'm going to do is sneak in a little counter node between those 2. All right. And plug that in. Okay. So what happens here is it's saying, do I have at least 2 bars, 2 signals within the last 10 bars? In most cases, the answer is yes. So let me switch that to 3 and look back at 3, and we'll start to get discrete signals. Okay, so you'll notice actually as well, like it just sort of builds up to it. it's giving you sort of an anticipation. But you see how that first signal comes in right here? We get 33% confidence. The second signal comes in, we get 66% confidence. The third signal comes in, boom, then we get, that says we've met our, we've got 3 bars that have shown up. Count of 3 bars, you know, that's a signal. And like I said, these don't actually have to be consecutive, and unfortunately I don't have something to generate to show you. But imagine these could be, you know, 1 bar, blank bar, 1 bar, blank bar. It could be something like that. And if you want to just, again, test for 3 bars that have signaled within the last X number of bars, you would just change the look back period so it's a little higher. Similarly, instead of this sort of fuzzy looking, you know, kind of signal, you know, where we got sort of, as it's counting up that the bars are growing, we can just make it digital so we don't get that at all. And we just get these discrete signals. So we only get a signal when we've reached our count. So that's what the counter is for. And it's for things like, you know, you want you know, X number of bars to be, or X number of conditions to be satisfied before maybe making, you know, before you sort of satisfy some sort of criteria or setup. Okay? All right, so let me just go back and take a look at your comments. So for the signal counter, if I want the highest volume bar of the last 10 volume bars, what I use the signal counter. You want the highest volume bar. Okay, so it depends. I think if you want the maximum, you're probably better looking for the look back, okay, and using a max, and basically plugging into that some sort of comparison or threshold. You know, so if you want the highest volume bar of the last 10 volume bars, the highest volume bar. Okay, so you want the maximum. Okay, well, let's see. Let me think about that. 5, 6, 20. Gary, that's a good one. That's a really good question. You know, it depends. You know, like if, you know, when you say maximum, you know, generally speaking, you're probably comparing those volume bars to some sort of threshold or some sort of to something. Am I correct? I mean, you know, obviously you take the highest bar, and you know, the question is what do you do with the highest bar? I imagine you're probably checking it against some sort of threshold. So to do something like that, all right, and let me just do that real quick. I compare it to the previous volume bars. Okay, I understand. I'll have to think about that one, Gary. That's a little challenging because we're dealing with, you know, discrete signals, or signals in this case, and in terms of comparing indicator values to the past values, you know, that would involve more like displacements. Okay, so let me show you how to just, you know, compare. If you want to compare a bars previously to each other, you know, it's a little bit tedious, but this is kind of how you do it. All right, so if I go in here, I'm going to take volume bars, right? Volume, okay. All right, and let's just add. Okay, the maximum would be pretty tough, and I'm just sort of going through my head how we would do something like that. But you know, let's just take a look. Let's just muck around and see if we can get to what Gary's getting at, because that one's a little tricky. But if you want to compare something to something previously, you know, obviously you're using indicator comparison. But what you can do is you pop in, you know, say the current one here, like so. Volume, where are your volume? Okay, volume. And then you want to compare it to the previous volume bar. And this is, you know, how you compare raw indicator values, you displace it by 1, right? That will give you the comparison. And, in this case, it's sort of, the long and short may not make sense. So I would probably blank 1 out and just deal with the long side, and then you can use the signal extender or the long short modifier to mirror the image, if you will. And that's, again, a great example of one example of where you would use something like that. But this kind of gives you, is the previous volume greater than the volume before? And, in theory, you could chain a bunch of these together, 10 of them. Unfortunately, you're doing 10 for the last 10 bars. And let me just see here. I'm just sort of thinking through my brain here, how you go about doing that. But yeah, that's how you would compare one value against another indicator's value using indicator values. And certainly when we get that math node done, something like this would be a lot easier to do. Again, it's something that's on the drawing board, folks, but it hasn't been implemented yet. But for now, you would have to create probably 9 different nodes or 10 different nodes, each one comparing the previous volume bars to each other. And I'm trying to think, is there a way to get the maximum? Oh, I'm silly. There's an easy way to do this. Yeah, overthinking this. We have SI Chameleon, all right? You could just use SI Chameleon. Okay, so plug this into SI Chameleon using this, right? Volume. Okay, actually, we want the reverse. We want SI Chameleon. We want volume to be fed into SI Chameleon. So we would use SI Chameleon first, plug volume into that, like so. Okay, and so let's look back to 10. Oh, we get SMAs. We don't have max values. Oh no, we want high bounds. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I believe this should work. So we are taking the high values. Yep. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. You would take the high values. So this is in fact, this is exactly what you'd be getting at. This combination here, using SI Chameleon would and SI Chameleon, for those of you that are new, is included with BloodHound for free. Basically will spit out the maximum value of whatever you feed it. So I fed it the volume, so this will spit out the maximum value of the volume for the last 10 bars. Okay, you could probably even plot it too, because it is just an indicator. So why don't we just try that and take a look what that looks like. But if you're setting it up with NinjaTrader, it's a little more clumsier. Again, remember, BloodHound doesn't need to have this set up. If you just want to visualize this, though, you'd have to do it this way. And that would be using SI Chameleon. And you would have to go to your input. There's a way in here. Where's the input? There, input series. The indicator. And this. So, our load interface is a little cleaner with this. You just hit that nest input as you saw, and it's all done. But here, you'd have to go to input series, select indicator, go to volumes, and let's just apply that. I'm not going to save this template. All right. And, of course, yeah, it would be on the, let's put that on the panel 2. Let's see if that makes sense. Okay, yeah, so let's set that to 10. All right, so that's the maximum volume for the last 10 bars. Okay, yeah. Oh, looking for exhaustion. Okay, so yeah, that's how you do it. And you see there's a couple other plots there, and SI chameleon will also plot the lowest value for the last 10, and then even the averages. So it's a pretty flexible little indicator we got there. And between you and me, it was that simple to implement. So something that needs to be done, though. Okay, so all right. So I hope that answers your question, Gary. And it looks like we're pretty good for time here. So I'm going to wrap it up here. And I still left a lot of little things for Zach to cover. And next week we can certainly cover some of this, like the toggle node. I didn't really touch on that very much. In some of these new ones, these if-then relational truth tables, I mean, we're still also trying to figure out good examples of where to use them. These are new enough that we just we still don't have any solid. We obviously know how they work, but we just don't have any great use cases that would be very easy to pick up for people. And then, admittedly, some of these these other nodes too. We don't have super awesome examples yet either. So that's why when I sort of said earlier this is an advanced class, it's because I sort of expect everybody to be on a certain level at least to be able to understand this. And so again, I apologize for new people. When we do get some better use cases out of this, and we sort of get more something that people can grasp in terms of tangibility, this will be a lot easier to demo and understand as well. But yeah, I mean, I think we've covered a fair bit of ground today, and I think we'll sort of wrap it up here, and I'll just make sure that we don't have any sort of additional questions here. Oh, Ryan is asking SI price marker. That's just an internal indicator. Funny little thing I should mention. That's actually a Falcon thing, but I think I placed it in there anyway. But is unfortunately because the way NinjaTrader is designed, we're not able to sort of make internal indicators like disappear from that list. It sort of hunts them down and picks them up anyway. But price marker is just it's an internal indicator, and it really does. This debug is also an internal indicator, as you imagine, it helps for debugging, and a lot of the ones that you see, like this one's not even complete. This is again the bug build that I'm running here. But price marker is not really intended for actual use, but I mean, if you're curious, really what it does is it just there's a sort of a hidden function in there that lets you draw. It basically draws some feedback, draws an arrow up here, and it's really designed for the programmatical side, not necessarily for users to muck around with. Okay. All right. So, guys, thanks for joining us. Yeah, I mean, I'm always glad to see you guys, and if you got any questions, feel free to hit us up on the support forums and stuff, and we try to get back to you as soon as we can. Other than that, thanks for the great session, guys, and we'll see you next week. All right? Bye-bye.